How's it going, everyone? I've been looking forward to this video for a long time. I've been putting together a 4-player web warrior strategy for a while now, and it's finally tested enough to where I'm ready to share it. And with this strategy, in my tests, I tested it against a few scenarios, but in particular, I wanted to share the mutagen formula test. I tested it against 4-player mutagen formula on expert mode, and with this strategy on turn 6, which is pretty quick, very, very quick into the game, I was able to do 140 damage with the team and take out both stages of Green Goblin. And then we tested against Expert Venom Goblin as well. And Venom Goblin is much more difficult. He adds a lot more pressure at the beginning. So it was a little bit longer game, but still, it was a victory on turn 8 with relative ease, at least as much ease as you can expect with Expert Venom Goblin. And it was 120 damage, and that's also without the good setup. So neither of these games was I sitting around waiting for the perfect setup. It's just when the time came, did a final push, and the deck is these decks together are consistently able to output tons of damage. And in the Venom Goblin game, the SPDR suit was actually webbed up and stunned, so this wasn't even close to maximum damage in this situation. But still, you don't have to do more than the villain has in health. So the ability to consistently build up within just a few turns and then take out the villains that quickly, like 5 to 8 turns, you can expect to defeat the villains. It's a very fast gameplay for 4-player, and it's really fun. And I want to share this whole build with you. So this is what I'm going to be talking about in the video, just to give you a bit of an outline and so you know what to expect. First, I want to talk about why Web Warriors as an archetype. Then I'll go into talking about why these 4 heroes out of the Web Warriors in particular. And then I'm going to go over a strategy overview, talking about each hero's different role in the whole strategy. And then after that, talk about the specific deck builds for each hero. So this is going to be going over every card that I added into their deck, why I added it there, what its uses are. So you really get to see what the deck is supposed to do for each of these heroes. And then at the end, finish off with some strategy tips, talking about what you're supposed to do with each of these characters during each phase of the game, and just how to make this strategy work. So now let's jump into it, talking about why I chose Web Warriors. The reason I wanted to do this with Web Warriors is because I haven't seen much multiplayer Web Warrior discussion, like on YouTube or on the deck forums or anything like that. And I personally think they're extremely good in multiplayer. So when you compare like the Web of Life and Destiny to the X-Jet and the Quinn Carrier, it's very different. So the Web of Life and Destiny says, after a Web Warrior ally leaves play, choose a player and that player draws 1 card. And it's not limited to once per phase or anything like that. And you can choose a player, so anyone can get it. You don't even have to have the Web Warrior trait to get the ally. Just having a Web Warrior at the table with Web of Life and Destiny and some Web Warrior allies will allow basically a multi-use Avengers Mansion for the whole team. And if you look at the X-Jet and the Quinn Carrier is the most selfish. You can see that it's just exhaust Quinn Carrier, generate a wild resource, but only works for the player that has the Quinn Carrier. And the X-Jet is a little more team-oriented, to where it says exhaust the X-Jet, generate a wild resource for a player whose identity has the X-Men trait. So you can use that for any X-Men hero. Notably, you can't use it in Alter Ego, which is a little unfortunate, but in a 4-player X-Men game, you have 1 resource generator for the team. And I think the X-Men is kind of thought of as like the premier team-oriented group. And they definitely are very team-oriented, but I think the Web Warriors are, at least in my opinion, the most multiplayer-oriented group when you have all of them. Like if you only have a couple Web Warriors, obviously you can't do a 4-player Web Warrior strategy. But when you have all the Web Warriors, this card pool can do some pretty crazy stuff. I'm excited to share that with you. So now I want to talk about why these 4 heroes in particular, because there's a lot of Web Warrior heroes, and I chose these ones for very specific reasons. And a lot of that comes down to the allies. So when I shared these deck lists, I want to make sure that it follows all the rules consistently, so that you are allowed to play all these cards. And the Spider-Man Peter Parker Web Warrior ally and the Ghost Spider Web Warrior ally are 2 of the best allies in like the whole game. So the Peter Parker ally has a resource requirement, but after you get him onto the table, he's a 2/2/3 stat line. and it says, after Spider-Man attacks or thwarts, choose another Web Warrior character and ready that character. So getting multiple readies off of this ally is extremely powerful, and because I wanted this card, unfortunately, that means Peter has to go. But on the bright side, I think having the Peter Parker ally is a lot better than having the hero at the table. And then the Ghost Spider ally is also very good. She just says, when a Ghost Spider leaves play, search your deck for an identity-specific event and add it to your hand. And a lot of these Web Warriors have very powerful identity-specific events. So that's why Ghost Spider didn't make the cut. I'm not going to go over every single reason why it was these four, but essentially the reasoning for it was that I wanted to make sure that I could get all of the Web Warriors I wanted for this strategy to work and follow the unique rule. And the unique rule says a card with a unique icon. The players as a group are permitted to have only one copy of each unique card by title in play. Notice it says in play, so you'll see later on that 2 different decks are using the Spider-Man Peter Parker ally, and also 2 different decks are using the Web of Life and Destiny, because that has the unique icon, but we have 2 copies in the card pool, and the restriction is only on being in play. So you can think of like the core box with Nick Fury, how in the starter decks that come with it, all 4 of those decks have Nick Fury, and there's 4 copies of Nick Fury and 4 copies of Mockingbird. That's totally fine. You just can't all have them all in play at the same time. So that's a large reason why I chose these heroes, was because of the allies that I wanted to include. And here are some of the allies. Spider-Man 2099 is really new. He's just came out with the Silk Pack, and he's kind of the cornerstone of a lot of the strategy. Spider-Man Jessica Drew, the aggression ally that also came with Silk, is extremely powerful. I'm going to talk about how to use her optimally later. And then I wanted to also mention that because we're taking a Web Warrior in each aspect, we have access to the entire pool of Web Warrior allies, which is very good, and there's a lot of things you can do with that, as you'll see later. And Scarlet Spider is yet another new one, and I really like Scarlet Spider. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to save the talking about all of the combos later for the next sections, but very, very powerful allies. And now I'm going to talk about the roles of each of them. So this kind of breaks down like this to me. Spider-Ham is in leadership, and he's sort of the leader of the team here. He's sort of bankrolling the whole team, and he's not he's really a support that's helping everyone else on the team. Miles, I chose to put him in aggression, and his role is to deal with the minions at the beginning of the game, and then at the end of the game transition into just doing a ton of damage. Silk is the Justice player, and she's all about threat removal. And SPDR is the mid-game carry, and also sort of a Voltron target for this team, which that's really cool, and we'll go into that in the deck profiles coming up soon. So Spider-Ham and SPDR are really kind of the core of this strategy. So what happens is Spider-Ham uses all of the Web Warriors to just give a ton of card draw to the SPDR player, and that allows the SPDR player to set up, and then also allows SPDR to have good turns every single turn. Because SPDR, when set up, has great output, but can just sometimes get bad hands. And with the amount of card draw we have available here, that's mitigated. So Spider-Ham, he has Web of Life and Destiny, which will be in play either by him or the other character that has it. Spider-Man 2099 allows you to return a Web Warrior from play to the owner's hand, which triggers the Web of Life and Destiny to choose a player, and that player draws 1 card. So whenever that happens, Spider-Ham can give SPDR a card. Make the Call allows you to pay the printing cost of an ally in any player's discard pile and put that ally into play under your control. And since all 4 of these characters are bringing Web Warrior allies, that means all 4 discard piles are open to Spider-Ham to grab Web Warriors from all the different aspects. So you'll pretty much always have targets to be bringing Web Warriors into play under Spider-Ham's control, and then have them leave play either by blocking, being defeated by Consequential, or returning to hand with Miguel O'Hara's effect. And then Regroup is an insane 4-player card that says when an ally is defeated by an enemy attack, return it to its owner's hand instead of discarding it. So that means that on the villain phase, after Spider-Ham kind of spams out these allies, the Web Warrior allies, you can block with them, so you can block for the whole table. And then if you can imagine, and this isn't infrequent in my playtests, where you block with 4 Web Warrior allies in one villain phase. And when regroup's out, that means that the Web Warrior ally is going to return to hand to whoever controlled that Web Warrior ally. Web of Life and Destiny will trigger because the Web Warrior ally left play and choose the player and draw a card. And then the regroup, since you're getting another card, it's essentially like 8 card draw on one villain phase that you can spread around. So the regroup always goes to the player who, the ally returns to the player who controlled it, but the Web of Life and Destiny can go to any player. And it's just so powerful. So you can use all of that card draw and economy to really ramp up SPDR and have a very powerful mid-game character. And then that's not all, because since we have all the aspects and SPDR is going to be readying a lot, giving her just some stat increases from aggression and justice is going to help too. So SPDR is going to have a insanely powerful stat line, have a bunch of card draw to smooth out those turns, and then just be a powerhouse in the mid game. And getting card draw is just, I want to emphasize how important this is for SPDR, in my opinion, because you want to find these interface upgrades for SPDR as fast as you can. They become effects for you. See, like Host Spider readies, Psychic Link, you get +2 thwart, and then Web Fluid Compressor gives you +2 attack, you can get +2 defense, so you can increase all of your stats, you can ready, and they also become resource generators for you. And a lot of times what can happen with SPDR is actually the opposite of what you'd expect. She has 3 hand size, but sometimes you might have more resources than you're able to spend, because if you can play the 3 cards in your hand easily, you might be left with some extra. So getting card draw for SPDR not only helps your setup, but it also helps to where you don't ever waste your resources. So you're always having a good turn. So you can just funnel resources into SPDR up into the point where SPDR has like a perfect turn set up to where you can see like, yeah, I can ready this many times. I can play all the cards in my hand. I'm good. And then after that, you can start giving the card draw to other heroes. And it's just so fun and so powerful. So the secondary target for Spider-Ham's card draw is going to be Silk. And that's because Silk has a bunch of upgrades that are very powerful that she wants to play. So as sort of a secondary target for the card draw, like after SPDR is like, yeah, I got a good turn available, I can play everything in my hand, I can ready, I have a good plan. Then when the other allies are leaving play, Ham can start funneling those resources back to Silk, and then Silk can just reliably set up and do it very quickly and then become a powerhouse as well. So then it's very easy to get 2 extremely powerful late game heroes on the table just in a few turns. So these are the upgrades I'm looking for when I'm playing Silk. Eidetic Memory is pretty good, and Spider Reflexes and Organic Webbing and Albert Moon, these 3 cards there are going to be kind of the key, because you always have cards to spend your tuck cards on, because you can always ready with Organic Webbing, and you can always go to Alter Ego and draw cards with your Alter Ego ability and use Albert Moon to tuck more cards or heal or whatever it is you need to do. So getting these ones down are vital, and then the extra ones are kind of just, extra. You don't necessarily need all of them, but don't skip these ones. And once you have these upgrades out, or at least just a couple of them, you're going to feel very functional and very strong when you're playing Silk. This is the Web Warrior ally roster that I went with. So for Spider-Ham, he's going to be taking the Peter Parker ally, because he has all these wild resources, so he can meet the resource requirement really easily. And that's going to ready up heroes, so when SPDR uses her stat boosts, you'll be able to ready her up and then get more activations out of her. And I say stat boost here because SPDR is using a repurpose deck, so the repurpose bonus is going to stay for the whole round. So then when you use Peter Parker to ready up SPDR, you're getting more huge activations. And then the 2099 ally just lets you return those allies. Very expensive leadership, so that goes with Ham. And then he brought Madam Web and Hobie Brown. So Madam Web is mostly just going to be you can order the boost cards, get rid of some nasty boost icons, because you're not really going to get to order encounter cards in 4-player, but having an ally around that has 2 thwart, that is just a Web Warrior, and then can get rid of some difficult cards is going to be useful. And then Hobie Brown is just a pretty solid ally. So that's the allies that Ham's taking. And SPDR is going to be taking Scarlet Spider, Spider UK, Spider Bite, and Otto Octavius. So UK is really good, and actually SPDR isn't planning on playing it. So when you're using Spider UK, since Ham is sort of hoarding the Web Warrior allies with Make the Call, that actually is going to be a target for Spider Ham to make the call, bring Spider UK into play under Spider Ham, who's going to have like 2 to 4 allies often, and then always have Spider UK's ability online of when he defends, deal damage to the attacking enemy equal to the number of Web Warrior cards you control. So since you control Ham, you likely control Web of Life and Destiny, and Spider UK is a Web Warrior card. And then another one, you have 4 to 5 damage pretty frequently coming off of Spider UK's defenses. And then if he does get defeated and leaves play, then you just get to draw cards. So it's very good. Spider Bite and Otto are the ones that SPDR is actually going to be playing, because Spider Bite is reduced by 1. The cost is reduced by 1 for each tech card you control. And SPDR has tech, and since we're using Repurpose, there's going to be other tech, and Spider Bite's just essentially free. Otto Octavius lets you ready an upgrade, and if it has the tech, you get to draw a card. So that obviously is going to go to SPDR because she's going to get card draw off that because she has tech. And then Scarlet Spider is a fantastic Web Warrior ally. It doesn't particularly matter who controls him. He just says when another Web Warrior character would take any amount of damage, Scarlet Spider takes that damage instead. And that's just another Web Warrior character, meaning any of the 4 heroes and any of the other allies. So the primary use for him is going to be saving Peter Parker's consequential damage, because you really don't want Peter to disappear because his effect is so valuable. So when you get Scarlet Spider and Peter Parker on the table, you can just have the consequential damage that would go onto Peter go onto Scarlet Spider instead, and just get more and more activations. And then Scarlet Spider can also take damage for the heroes and keep them alive if you get like a random like boost effect or something, or a bad encounter card that would take you out. Silk is going to be taking the Spider-Man Peter Parker ally as well, and there's a duplicate here just because it's so important to get Peter Parker down that you're just trying to find him as soon as you can. So she doesn't necessarily have to play him, but she does draw a lot of cards. So since she's drawing so many cards, it'll help find Peter Parker. And then if she plays him, great. If not, just throw him in the discard pile, and then Spider-Ham can grab him out of the discard pile with Make the Call. And then Lady Spider is just a good output ally. I'm not necessarily looking to play Lady Spider on the first deck pass, but Ham it has enough resources to just sort of play Lady Spider out of the discard pile if that's what you need, if you need a lot of thwart. And then also Silk becomes very rich on the second deck pass, which is going to be around like turn 3 to 4. And then Lady Spider is a good idea at that point. And Spider-Man Miles is going to be taking the Jessica Drew ally, which is extremely powerful. She says after a Web Warrior ally, including this one, enters play, deal 1 damage to an enemy. And that's just always available. So you don't block with Jessica Drew. You just play her onto the table. So Miles just gets her onto the table, and then she just sits there. And then when Spider-Ham's playing so many allies with like Regroup, Make the Call, and other people are playing allies too, Jessica Drew just does like 20, 30 damage. If you get her at the beginning, she's going to do like 20 to 30 damage over the course of the game from just sitting there. So yeah, she just sort of sits there, and it's really, really good. And then Ghost Spider I gave to Miles because Miles has very powerful identity-specific events, and I wanted him to be able to search that with Ghost Spider. So that's sort of the reasoning behind what Web Warriors go to what hero. And here I just wanted to show what the game looks like from Spider-Ham's perspective. All of these Web Warrior allies are going to be available to you through the discard piles and through all the card draw that we're getting. And then you're going to have just so many options with Make the Call, Regroup, Web of Life and Destiny, and Miguel to just really make use of this suite of allies. It's so good and so powerful, and Spider-Ham really kind of carries this with his just huge economy and his ability to just bankroll literally like the whole team. So now we're going to talk about the specific builds for each character, starting with Spider-Ham. So here's the cards. I already went over the Web Warriors and Web of Life and Destiny, so I'll skip that. Across the Spider-Verse is basically a Make the Call, but for the team. It says exhaust a Web Warrior card you control, search your discard pile for a Web Warrior ally and put it into play, then choose a player. That player may spend 3 resources of any type to repeat this ability. So if someone else has just excess resources around and a web warrior in their discard pile after you play across the Spider-Verse, they can repeat that ability. So Spider-Ham would choose, let's say SPDR has extra resources with the interface upgrades. That player may spend 3 resources of any type to repeat that. So that's going to be pretty good. And then classic Spider-Ham stuff of just taking 3 copies of Clarity of Purpose, because you want to find this on turn 1, because this is a 1-cost double wild resource generator essentially for Spider-Ham, so getting that as soon as possible is really good. And in multiplayer, since it just says attached to a friendly character, you can just give them to the other heroes after that. So I'm typically going to be giving this to SPDR, or I guess it doesn't really matter. SPDR, Silk, and Miles are all great targets for it. So Miles has these resource requirements on his events, so he might want it. SPDR just wants money, and Silk also just wants money. So it's going to be fine. Just whatever player at the table wants Clarity of Purpose, just throw the extra copies out to them. And then sort of as a backup strategy here, if you don't have the Web Warrior strategy in play yet, like let's say you don't have Whip of Life and Destiny from either player, then you can just use Maria Hill and just do the classic 4-player looping Maria Hill and giving 4 card draw every time she comes into play. So that's really powerful. And then Mission Leader, I think, is a great card for this. It says reduce the cost to play Mission Leader by 1 if your identity has a soldier trait. You don't, but it doesn't matter. You can still play it. Hero response: after a side scheme is defeated, exhaust Mission Leader and each player draws 1 card. So that's going to let everyone draw more cards again, which is very powerful. And since Silk is going to be taking even the odds, you'll see that later in her deck build. Defeating side schemes will be very easy and fairly frequent here. So taking Mission Leader is a great idea. And then Regroup, we talked about how powerful that is. And then the rest of it's just sort of just economy stuff. So team building exercise works for both your cartoon and Web Warrior cards. And since you're going to be just spamming Web Warrior allies with Spider-Ham, you want to play that so that you can reduce the cost, so that you can make sure you can hit those like playing 2 to 4 Web Warrior allies every single turn. And the Energy Genius Strength, because it's good. The Triskelion increases your ally limit, which is going to be useful because you'll have so many Web Warriors in play that you'll often need to get to 4, or if you can, you want to get to 4. Command Team is good to just ready up some Web Warriors when it's necessary. And then Helicarrier is there because 2 of the decks, not this one, or not Ham, but 2 of the decks are taking build support. So every single one of these characters has a copy of Helicarrier. And now on to SPDR, which is going to be a repurpose deck because it's very good for her. So repurpose, it's been around for a while now. It just says discard a tech upgrade you control, ready your hero, and choose thwart, attack, or defense. Till the end of the round, your hero gets plus X to the chosen power, where X is equal to that upgrade's printed cost. And you're going to be repurposing these tech upgrades below: the energy barriers, force field generators, and plasma pistol. And you really just choose whatever stat you need. So if your team needs thwarting, you choose thwarting that round. If it needs attack, choose attack that round. And then you'll be able to ready with repurpose and then also limitless stamina. So you want to repurpose first, and then because that gives you your stat bonus for the whole phase, and then use Host Spider and limitless stamina to get more readies and more activations. And with all this extra card draw, you can easily afford that and also play an event or 2, and it's just really powerful. SPDR becomes the incredible mid-game carry. And then the Night Nurse is just very good in multiplayer, getting to remove the status cards from characters that have it. And Dr. Sinclair, very good as well, because when people go to Alter Ego, they can just spend a mental and heal damage from their Alter Ego equal to their recovery, and also discard a status card from your identity. So that's very good. So there's 2 support cards there that will just help keep people alive. And we have Energy Genius Strength, 1 copy of Power Protection. I didn't go 2 just because I still want to avoid the dead cards in hand, and then it's mostly useful on like turn 1 or 2 to set up an energy barrier or a force field generator, or play an ally, or maybe Dr. Sinclair. And then after that, since there's so much card draw around, you don't really need it as much on the second deck pass. And then Symbiote Suit, since this is a 4-player game, the hazard card is not as bad. And then getting the +1 hand size, +10 hit points, and then +1 to each of the basic stats, and especially when you're readying so much, I think is really good for SPDR. And then Unshakable's in, just because it's the 14 hit point thing where you can become steady. You don't want to get stunned on SPDR or confused, because it really slows down your output, and you have a bunch of output with your basic activation. And we have Helicarrier because of the build support shenanigans, and then one copy of Spider Tingle just to leave it around and use it if it's necessary. It also combos pretty well with the Symbiote suit, since if you use that, using Spider Tingle when you have 24 hit points is not going to be scary to take 1 damage, and you might cancel a really bad treachery with it. So I have 1 copy in there. I didn't want to lean into it too hard, but it's just an extra little thing that you can do with this deck. And now on to Silk. So Silk is a genius and a web warrior. So we have the genius package here of Moon Girl and Ingenuity, because it's just so much card draw, so many resources for her. And we have Nick Fury and Face the Past just to get more card draw and really help set up. So between Moon Girl, Nick Fury, Face the Past, and then Web of Life and Destiny giving everyone card draw, there's just going to be, you're going to set up very quickly with this deck. And then on top of that, there's also 3 copies of Skilled Investigator. So you can see the theme of this, that like there's just going to be so many cards being drawn that you can kind of solve all your problems. And Silk also has the other copy of Across the Spider-Verse. She also has Peter Parker. And I thought it was fun to include the Investigative Journalism team-up card, because the Peter Parker ally is essentially a Voltron ally with this build. There's almost always going to be a copy of him on the table. So going to Alter Ego and then using the Alter Ego interrupt of when an enemy would scheme, cancel that activation, and confuse that enemy, just very, very valuable. And then Even the Odds kind of solves all the side scheme problems. You need an energy resource, and it says remove 1 per player threat from each side scheme, deal 1 damage to the villain for each side scheme defeated this way. So in 4 player, that's going to be 4 threat from each side scheme, and if there's 2 or 3, like if there's 3, that's 12 threat removed from this 1 card, as well as getting some chip damage on top of that. It's absolutely amazing. And then it's just so good. And if you want to, you can throw Chance Encounter onto a side scheme before doing that, and just search out a Web Warrior, or maybe you grab Moon Girl or Nick Fury, something like that. We have Heroic Intuition for to just give to the SPDR player. And then we have probably my favorite tech is the 2 copies of Cell Phone. There's a couple of purposes to it. One, it's energy resources for Even the Odds. And the second one is that you can get allies to activate out of turn order. It says exhaust Cell Phone, remove 1 charge counter from here, and choose a player. That player makes a basic attack or thwart with a character they control, and that character gets +1 thwart and +1 attack for this use. So the primary use of this is going to be on the Peter Parker ally on SPDR's turn. So what you can do is SPDR repurposes something, gets a huge stat bonus, and then you use the Cell Phone to call Peter. Peter activates, and after Peter attacks or thwarts, ready another Web Warrior, you choose SPDR. SPDR readies up and gets another huge activation. That's the main use of the Cell Phone, and it's very, very good. And then since Silk is drawing so many of the cards in this deck, she has the other copy of Web of Life and Destiny and build support, because that's something you're looking for at the beginning of the game. And she's more likely to find it than SPDR or Miles is, because she's drawing so many cards. And then there's the Helicarrier, and then another cool multiplayer card is Lay the Trap. I love this in multiplayer. It says when defeated, the player defeated this scheme deals 5 per player damage to the villain. And so in 4 player, that's going to be 20 damage. That's a huge amount of damage here. And it's also really good in the sense that also means not everyone has to have their damage cards available. You can convert thwarting into damage. So if you have your thwart event on like Miles or Spider-Ham or Silk, you can use it on Lay the Trap when you need damage, and then convert that thwarting into damage. So it's going to make your final pushes a lot more consistent. And also 20 damage is just a lot. Now, moving on to the last one, which is going to be Miles, which this is kind of the most different, because Miles is sort of the early game control build. So I threw in some allies here that are like champions and Nick Fury, because it's thematic with the campaign of Sinister Motives. And Spider-Girl is just really cheap. It's unfortunately not a Web Warrior, but because that has Spider in the title and it's a good ally, I just added it. Its response after you play Spider-Girl from your hand, stun and confuse a minion, which is going to be really good, especially with Moment of Triumph, because Miles, when something's stunned and confused, he can use his 1-cost attack event to deal 8 damage to that enemy. And if you do 8 damage to something that has, like, let's say 1 health remaining, and you play Moment of Triumph on it, that means you can heal basically up all the way to full health while in hero form, which is going to be very valuable. So I really like that combo in there. And then Ironheart, just a champion. Miles is a champion. He draws him a card. Nick Fury is just good. Sunfire is really good for those really difficult scenarios where they have like just a horrible attachment. So like Ronin, for instance, you can get rid of his universal weapon with Sunfire. Sunfire comes in clutch a lot. Locust is just a fun champion ally that lets you add one aggression event from your discard pile to your hand. And getting Bring It or Moment of Triumph or Relentless Assault at the right time can be very useful and very valuable. Relentless Assault just helps deal with those minions to control the board state at the beginning of the game. And then Champion's Mobile Bunker is really good, not for like, it increases your economy in a sense, but the main use to me is finding the card you need when you need it. Because you draw 2 cards and then you discard 2 cards from the hand. So this is going to be like there's a threat on the board and you need to find the right card to deal with it. Or you're going for the final push, but you didn't draw your damage. Champion's Mobile Bunker is going to add some consistency to that so you can find your damage better. Combat Training goes on to SPDR. Fluid Motion, since you're playing a lot of attack events between Relentless Assault and Miles' attack events, is just going to be good. It's just a little bonus to your attack. And then Hall of Heroes, since Miles is the main person taking out these minions, at least in the early game, because SPDR can just start bopping them later. The Hall of Heroes stacks will go up, and I really like using Hall of Heroes on the final push because you can go to Alter Ego, shuffle your attack event into your deck, and then when you go for the final push, you can draw 3 cards before you flip up and go for it. It will increase the consistency a lot. Martial Prowess is a good resource generator that can help get the kicker on Relentless Assault. And then Helicarrier, everyone has it. Audacity is just very good because, spending a card and dealing a damage is just sort of extra output. And then the wild resource can help him meet his requirements on his identity-specific events. And he has the other copy of Build Support, and then also Keep Up the Pressure. And Keep Up the Pressure is just so ridiculously good. It says, when defeated, each player may search their deck and discard pile for an attack event and add it to their hand. Until the end of the phase, each attack event deals 1 additional damage. So when you have 4 people searching their attack event, especially when there's good ones, like Swinging Silk Kick is going to do 9 damage, and it's going to increase to 10 from Keep Up the Pressure. Miles can get his Acrobatics or Venom Blast, or not Venom Blast, what is it called? Whatever his attack event is that triggers his Venom Blast ability. Very good there. So he can get 9 damage off of his 1 cost attack event. SPDR has a pretty good attack event. It'll be like 6 damage. And then Spider-Ham can get, 7 damage off his. So that's just a lot of damage and a lot of consistency added towards just taking out the villain there. So that's it for the deck profiles. This is the decks that I went with for all 4 of these characters. So hopefully now you understand what the role is of these characters and what the purpose of each card is in the deck. And now let's talk about the strategy so that all of this can come together in a cohesive package and you can do it and just have a good time and probably get some very, very nice wins. So in turns 1 to 2, the main thing that you're going to be looking for is that Spider-Ham and Silk are going to be looking for Web of Life and Destiny, because you want that on turn 1. And since it's in both of their decks, they can both mulligan for it, and just whoever gets it first just plays it onto the table, and then the whole Web Warrior strategy is online after that. So you have very good odds of seeing it on turn 1, and you'll certainly see it, not 100% certain, it could be the last card of both of their decks, but you'll have it between turns 1 and 3 basically every time, likely on turn 1 and 2. And then Spider-Ham on turns 1 and 2 is just going to play Web Warrior allies. If he doesn't have that set up, he just loops Maria Hill, and then he sets up all those economy cards like Mission Leader and the Clarity of Purposes and the team building exercises and stuff, and just really gets that engine going so that he can bankroll the team after that. And then Silk and SPDR are just really looking to set up. They're just trying to find their upgrades, get going with their strategy. And then Miles is there because a lot of minions, there's going to be a lot of scenarios that bring minions in early, and Miles just kind of is built to take those minions out, and then he sort of builds later into the game. So on turns 3 to 5, Silk, SPDR, and Spider-Ham should be set up at this point because of all the card draw. And then at this point, SPDR just switches to doing output and is just using all of the stat bonuses and the readying and the card draw to just deal with all the threats on the board. So SPDR is taking out minions, she's taking out side schemes, and if you don't have any minions or side schemes, you can start doing some damage to the villain or thwarting the main scheme. And yeah, that's what SPDR is doing. Silk is going to be thwarting with even the odds and also using her events where it's convenient. So if she has a convenient thwart event to use, she'll use that. If she has a convenient time to get overkill and tuck a minion with swinging Silk Kick, she'll do that and also get some chip damage on the villain. Miles now switches into preparing. So you're going to be able to do the final push very shortly after this. So Miles now is going to start looking at making sure he has his Hall of Heroes stacks up as far as he can, that he has like his web shooters ready, so that he has some resources available. He has the Champion's Mobile Bunker to draw some cards, and then you can start flipping down to Alter Ego, shuffling your attack events back into your deck. And that's sort of what Miles is doing. So he's just getting ready to end the game with the rest of the characters at this point. So he allows the others to build, and then once they're built, they allow him to build. And then Spider-Ham is just going, this should be online at this point, and he's just going to be playing so many Web Warrior allies and using his huge economy to just like throw out so many cards to the whole team. And then on turn 6+, you probably have the damage to take out the villain, which is pretty quick. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that you can expect a minimum of 100 damage just whenever things line up at all. You don't have to have everything line up. It's just as soon as everyone's like, yeah, I'm ready. I can hold this attack event, and then we can look for the push. That's pretty much all you need, is to just say, communicate with everyone, be like, yeah, next turn we're gonna do it, and then just do it, and then you'll end up with 100+ damage pretty consistently with this strategy. And specifically on taking out the villain, Miles is now going to switch to using his identity specific events because they're really high damage, and then he's going to hopefully go down to Alter Ego and then use Hall of Heroes to draw some cards and shuffle his attack events in. So shuffle the attack events in first, then draw cards with Hall of Heroes, flip back up, and then you do a bunch of damage with your events. Silk is going to finish Lay the Trap, and also I need to mention Keep Up the Pressure. So you want Keep Up the Pressure out, and then Silk uses Even the Odds. She can finish Lay the Trap and Keep Up the Pressure at the same time, which is very powerful. And then it'll search her swing Silk Kick when she finishes Keep Up the Pressure, and she can just do a bunch of damage there like that as well. And then SPDR, you just want to save a repurpose target for this turn, and then you want to repurpose and then just ready over and over again and do a ton of damage that way. And then Ham is just going to, instead of thwarting with the allies or attacking minions with the allies, he's just going to start hitting the villain with all the Web Warrior allies and then drawing more cards. And it's just basically just all the allies, you're just going to like swarm the villain and just start hitting him. And then you can mix in a couple swing web pigs. And that's about it. You just kind of delete the villain when you do this. I hope this video was interesting for you, and I encourage you to try out this strategy. In the description of the video, there will be links to the deck lists if you want to check out the deck lists and also have the list in front of you to make it and then try it. And let me know if you try it, because this strategy was a lot of fun for me. I put a lot of thought into making this work really well and really cohesively for all 4 heroes and the whole strategy. And it was a blast when I tried it. If you liked the video, like, comment, subscribe, stay zesty, and I'll see you next time.